This is Allan here from my studio in Auburn, California. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I don't typically wear green hat, big silly earrings, but today's St. Patrick's Day, so why not? I'm 17% Irish. So anyway, today I want to show you how to cut your own mat. I have this photo here, and this is a photo that actually was a black and white photo that my parents had from many years ago. It was much smaller, and so I scanned it in black and white, and then I enlarged it, and then I colored it in Photoshop. So the equivalent of what they used to call hand coloring, right, back in the day, but I did it in Photoshop, so digitally. So I just love this photo of my parents, and it was super fun. I got to choose the colors I wanted for the coat my mom has on and the jacket my dad has on and all that stuff. And it's just a really lovely photo. And when all was said and done, I printed it out, and it's almost 8 by 8, but not quite. It's a little bit off, and I may yet shave the top of it down, I'm not sure. But anyway, so I can try to find an 8 by 8 mat, opening for a mat. I have this frame here, and this frame is 12 by 12. So you can see that when all is said and done, it will look something like that. So I think the 12 by 12 is nice because obviously you've got 2 inches on all sides. If this is 8 by 8, and I have to see if I can shave it down a little to make it 8 by 8, it'll be exactly 2 inches on each side. But I have to decide that. So you can try to find a mat that will work, or you can cut your own. And the advantage to cutting your own, obviously, is that if you have a photo that's at a regular size and you just crop it the way you want it to, as an artist, that's your vision, whatever, then it's nice to be able to cut your own mats. You can always pay to have them cut custom, like at Michael's or somewhere, but it can be really expensive, like 30 bucks a mat, 40 bucks a mat, depending on the size and stuff. So, I have my acid-free mat here, and actually I pulled this up from some old work I'd done, and so I've already actually bisected lengthwise and widthwise. That's how I start. That's what my professor taught me, Catherine Mayo at Cosumnes River College in the photography program. So I have a desktop mat cutter. It's a compact mat cutter. It's by Logan, the guys that make the big ones too. So it's not fancy because I don't have a lot of room. But it's basic, and that's a straight edge cutter. So I have it lined up with the channels there. You can see that. And then I'm gonna make my cut. Okay, now I always score it several times to get the cleanest cut possible. Especially down at the end, it kind of tighten up there. So 1, 2, and I can feel it, each time, kind of feel it still cutting through. There. So what was that? 3.5, 4 cuts, and it just kind of falls off when it's ready to go. And that way I don't get like pulling at the corners. I get kind of nice, pretty clean corners. I mean, sometimes you get it, and this is, again, the external mat, so it doesn't matter that much, but still. Okay, so before I go any further, I want to make sure that my cuts resulted in a mat that's going to fit in the frame. So this is just a simple black gallery picture frame. I got it on Amazon because they had 12 by 12s. It was a good price. I actually couldn't find it at Michael's. So I've unpacked it, and I'm just going with, very simple, the black wood frame with a white mat. White usually emphasizes contrast. Black is sort of more, it's just darker, and it can kind of suck the contrast. So sort of standard studio gallery. And it has a nice, it's a 5 by 7 mat. That's nice, so I'm going to save that. But I'm going to go ahead and open it up. And I've used these guys before, and, they're fine. So just a standard clip deal. Take out the paper, take out the mat, and grab my mat that hopefully will fit, and I'm going to put it in, and like I said, I cut it just a tiny bit big, and actually it looks like it's going to fit fine. And yeah, so I have the solid part done. Now I have to cut the window, which is trickier because I'm going to do it as a bevel cut, an angled cut, because that's what standard is and just looks better and all that. I'm only going to do a single mat. I'm not going to do anything fancy with a double mat. This is kind of a small image, so I don't know that I would do a double mat so much for a smaller one. Maybe, maybe not, just depends. So next stage is then to go ahead and measure the window opening, so the 8 by 8 and something that I'm going to do for the window opening. And then I measured again the print, and it is exactly 8 inches wide, or almost exactly 8 inches wide, but top to bottom here is 8 3/4 or so. And you know, if I wanted to try to do it in 8 by 8 to buy a commercial mat, I wouldn't want to cut off the bottom because my mom's hands are here. So that would have to be the bottom. So if I put, you know, the 8 down there, you can see that it just goes up to like my dad's hairline right there. I should have gloves on here. I don't want to get my fingerprints all over this. And I don't think that I really want to, you know, have it that tight to his head. I just think that would not look good. So, you know, to give you an idea, if it was like really 8 by 8, I don't know if you can see that, but no, it's really going to cut his head off. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to plan to have the mat come down to about 1/4 of an inch above his head. You know, I think if I have it just like along here, I think that'll look good. So I'm going to plan for the mat to fit that way. So it won't be 8 by 8. So again, that's one of the advantages to being able to cut your own mat, is you can just cut it to what the image dictates and what you want to see as the artist. So that's the plan. Okay, so here's the map, the math on the irregular side. I often switch my numbers up a little bit, like a little dyslexic that way, not with letters, but numbers. So I have to check and double check, measure twice, cut once, that kind of thing. So I don't know if you can see this, but when I did the measurement, I want, again, the mat to come down about 1/4 of an inch above my dad's head. Give it a little bit of sky there. So when I did the complete measurement, that means that I really want it to be 8 7/16 total. So again, it's not going to be 8 by 8, 8 7/16, so just under 8.5 inches. But then I want to divide it by 2 because I'm measuring on either side of the bisected cross that I have already. So I have to divide it by 2, so 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then I'm left with the 7/16, so that's 3.5/16. I'm just going to round up to 4 to make it easier to measure. So 4/16 is 1/4 inch, so that's 4 1/4 inches on each side, which gives me 8.5 total. So it's going to be taller by 1/2 an inch compared to the width. So that's the plan. I've checked it twice. Now I'm going to do it in pencil, and I'm going to check the measurements twice. I'm going to check the whole thing versus what the half's supposed to be. I'm going to visually look at it with the picture. You know, I check it a whole bunch of ways because mat's expensive, and you know, I've already spent time cutting the outside. I don't want to mess up on the window, and the bevel cutting is tricky as well. So at least I want my measurements to be right. So, okay, so I'm measuring it for the width. Since I have my center right in the middle of the mat, I have the 4 here because I know that it's 8 inches. So 4 inches on each side gives me 8 inches. But I don't want to cut it exactly that because I don't want the photo to, you know, just barely fit the window. I want the mat to be a little bit smaller than the photo. So I'm actually going to subtract out 1/4 of an inch on each side. So rather than going the full 4 inches, it's going to be 3 3/4 inches, and I'm just going to mark there. Okay, so I actually made a mistake on one of my measurements, so I did it again, but you know, the beauty, it's the back of the mat, no one's going to see it, and you know, this is a handcrafted thing, so it's kind of cool that it's not perfect, right? Because we're not perfect. So, you know, you can see I measured wrong there. So when all is said and done, I have like a little tic-tac-toe board or whatever, because the inside is the window that I'm going to cut. So I do have my window, And something else my professor taught me to do was when you have your intersections for each 4 corners, you know, mark them with an X, because that makes it really clear, because we've got a lot of lines and crosses and things going on, where I want to cut. And that was like an invaluable tip that I do. So, you know, I just have the X's there so that I don't mistakenly cut whatever. So now I have my window done, but again, I'm going to pick up my photo and just kind of place it in and make sure that it looks like I did it right. Because if you don't do that, it may look great here, but it's ½ an inch off or something. So I'm just going to kind of place my photo where the marks are, and I can see that. See how the photo's a little bigger than those intersections? That's what I want, because again, I want a little bit of a, you know, ½ inch or at least an 1/8 of an inch on each side, so that my mat is going to be a little bit smaller than the photo. You know, I want it to cut off little bits around the photo. That's my goal. So looking at it again, looking at it every direction, putting it on these intersections, it looks like, yeah, the mat window will be smaller than the photo, and that's what I want. So now, okay, so now comes the tricky part, the beveled edge deal. So it's more complicated. You know, before I didn't have this thing on, it's just you put this down, you pull it down, it's pretty simple. But with the beveled inches, you need this extra straight edge thing that's going to give you some support, and they tell you to make sure you use a mat board, because you're cutting on an angle, so you're not going to cut right in the channel. So you're going to be cutting, you don't want to cut into your mat cutter, so they give you this mat piece. So I'm going to start here. I don't know how much you can see. I don't have this table here, so I gotta put it at an angle. But so I'm going to, oops, little alarm. I'm going to line up my X, my intersection for the bottom left corner here. And I gotta kind of get everything in the right place. I want to use this to support the mat. So I line it up, and then when it's lined up for cutting, just get it nice and precise again, you know, like measure twice, or in my case, like 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Then lock the straight edge in place so it butts up against it. You're going to put pressure on the guide rail too. But, okay, so I have my intersection here, I have it here. That's my start and my stop, right? Because you don't want to keep cutting, or you lose your, you know, you'll mess it up. You won't have a window mat anymore. This is the bevel cutter, so it's at an angle. And, you know, the razor blade's in here, and then with your thumb, when you cut it, you put it down, and it, you can see it, it goes into the mat, and then you slide it along. And there's also this little silver line, and that helps you line up where your intersection is. So it's got the grooves for the rails, just like normal. So I'm putting this on, and then I'm lining up the silver line here. Silver line is here, and I go bottom to top. So the silver line is on the line there, and then I have it all lined up. It's pretty secure, things are tight, looks good. So first, use your thumb to push it into the mat. She just moved a little bit, so I'm going to put it back, and there we go. See, I could actually hear it, sort of a little crunchy noise. I know it's in the mat. I'm going to stand up, give myself a little leverage, slowly cut up. I can feel it cutting, and then stop when that silver line reaches the top, and don't exceed that, and then flip it up, and then pull it out. Okay, can you see it? We actually have the cut. Okay, so that worked. So now I'm going to move on to the next one. So same. Okay, so I made my last cut and pick it up, and it just literally, it just fell out. It's like hot knife through butter. And so now I have a window frame. When you look up close, I don't know if you can see the beveled edges, but Yeah, so beveled on an angle, a diagonal from inside out. I don't think you can probably see that. But anyway, they're beveled and they look pretty clean. There's one little edge here that it looks like I overcut just the tiniest bit. I don't know, probably can't see it, but anyway, I overcut just the tiniest bit, but I don't think it'll be very noticeable. This corner here, just a tiny bit. So it's good to really follow the lines there so you don't overcut, but it looks pretty good. Let's put it in and put it all together and see if it works. We'll show you this. I've got my acid-free linen tape here in a cross, and you know, this makes it easy to make sure that you get this framed the way you want to when you put your mat over it. So I'm just putting it down, you know, checking for levelness and what. I'm just kind of laying it on. I think it looks pretty good. So, shoot, I just have to use gloves just in case your hands are dirty. So I did that, and now it'll be attached to the front, and I can just turn it over and add the other tape. So it looks pretty good. You can see I cut the window just right. It overlaps on the photo like I wanted it to. I've got the 1/4 inch gap above my dad's head, so that I think that looks better than cutting it right off. I'm all taped in. Saw something in the print, I'm not sure. Okay, I taped in and put it in the frame. I don't know if you can see that, but everything fits nicely. And then go ahead and put the back on. Get all these in here. And I'm gonna wire it because I don't like to hang with the sawtooth. But I think you can see here that it looks pretty good, right? Yeah, so there we go. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Hope this is helpful, and I think my next video I will go ahead and show you how I do my wiring. Thanks.